What's at stake for Kyle Shanahan this season? It feels like there really hasn't been much at stake for him. Maybe 2019 felt like he kind of had to make the playoffs. You can't miss the playoffs the first 3 years of your career and keep your job usually. So he went to the Super Bowl, got an extension, and things been really cool for him since. But now, like, it seems like most people are looking at him and saying, like, yeah, really good coach, but not only have you not figured out the quarterback situation, but it's like getting weird. And we're starting to lose confidence in your ability to figure it out for whatever reason. And it seems like his own fans a lot of them are really upset with him before he's even lost a game this year because of this Trey Lance thing. It just, in terms of vibes, it's got a little like Harbaugh's last year vibe, which may or may not be fair considering Harbaugh was coming off 3 straight NFC championship games and then it all fell apart. So do you think there's something at stake for Kyle this year? Or do you think he's essentially definitely going to be the head coach here next year no matter what?
So I think in two different ways. I think of what Kyle Shanahan thinks, and I think of what ownership thinks. When you talk about Kyle Shanahan specifically, I said it earlier, I think there's a sense of urgency from him himself. He wants to get this narrative under him because, like you said, if a Super Bowl is there, everything about Kyle Shanahan, every concern is erased because you won the Super Bowl. You're that's the thing that's evaded you, and you won the Super Bowl. However, from an ownership perspective, and I'm a Kyle guy, but I'm just being realistic. I honestly don't think that Jed York is going to look to fire Kyle Shanahan. I don't think that he can stomach it because we saw after Jim Harbaugh, the plethora of coaches the 49ers went through that really did not help the franchise. Instead, they turned the franchise down. And then you see what Kyle Shanahan has done, not only in terms of, culture, things like that, winning, but also money. Kyle Shanahan has regenerated money in Santa Clara. And so I think that, Jed York, the only way that he lets go of Kyle Shanahan is letting his contract expire. But I don't even think I don't even think he'll do that, at least until 2026, right? I don't think that Kyle Shanahan moves on until 2026. But he himself, I think there's urgency with himself saying, we got to, there's been a couple of screw ups, especially with Trey Lance. There's been a couple of screw ups with the way that we've handled things. We need to move on. We need to figure out a way to kind of get this narrative under us. So I think there is urgency from his part.
I think he's under the most scrutiny he's been. I don't think the Yorks want to fire him, but I think they're looking at him a little differently. Like after all the money and resources they've poured into the quarterback situation, like I think they got to get it right now with Brock and Sam Darnold. I think they have to. So like, let's say this season, Brock gets hurt and doesn't make it through or comes back down to earth a little bit, or Sam Darnold has to play and isn't good. I think people are going to start to lose confidence in Kyle Shanahan, especially if like, say, Jimmy Garoppolo plays well on the Raiders, or Trey Lance gets a shot with the Cowboys and looks decent. Like everyone's saying it's messy and weird with this quarterback situation. It could get worse than messy and weird. It could get ridiculous. And if it gets there, I feel like he's starting to lose job security. So he goes back to the NFC Championship game, of course. But if they're like one and done in the playoffs and they go into next season with no clarity at the quarterback spot, maybe looking for another one, I think at that point, everyone's starting to look at Kyle like, you really trust this dude to pick the next one? You really trust this dude to even pick him, coach him, keep him healthy, get him the same, So I think that's at stake for him. He needs to change the narrative on this quarterback thing. It's not weird and messy. Brock's the freaking guy or Sam's the freaking guy. And it has to be like that. Otherwise, if these dudes falter, Kyle falters. I think he's tied to them, both of them. He spoke so highly. You called the one guy the next Steve Young and he's your backup? No, we don't want to. No, dude, you love these quarterbacks, man. Make it work. They need to be here for like the next few years, both of them.
No, and I mean, if you talk about Kyle and these quarterbacks, the issue is I honestly don't think this narrative goes away unless the 49ers win a Super Bowl. And if I'm being realistic, based on what I saw in training camp, based on what I saw in the preseason, there's definitely optimism around Brock. There's definitely optimism around a guy like Sam Darnold as well. But do we really think the 49ers are going to win a Super Bowl this year? In my personal opinion, no. I don't think the 49ers are talented enough to win a Super Bowl this year, especially hinging on that quarterback position. First of all, we've seen injuries at the quarterback position in 5 of the last 6 years under the Kyle Shanahan regime. Not only that, we've also just seen a plethora of quarterback mishandling. That's Kyle Shanahan's main issue. And while you can understand that, you can have success in Kyle Shanahan's way without a strong quarterback option and instead a strong complementary team, you can't win a Super Bowl that way. The last
Yeah.
Super Bowl, people will point out the Trent Dilfers and things like that. That was in 2000. The NFL has
Yeah.
changed. When you look at the last few Super Bowls, especially when you look at guys on a rookie contract, this is something that I think people misconceive. You win with a quarterback on a rookie option because you then can use the salary cap elsewhere. But it's not like the rookie quarterbacks were bad. You got
They're all
Jalen
great.
Hurts, you got Patrick Mahomes, even Jared Goff that year. You know, he
Yeah.
was a great system quarterback that was a
Yeah.
top 10 quarterback in the league that year. You need a
Yeah.
good quarterback option, and I think that that's
Period.
the important part.
Period. You don't want to overspend on a quarterback like Jimmy Garoppolo, but essentially, if you have a top 7, 8, 9 quarterback, it doesn't really matter what you're paying for. You have a chance if you're a good drafting team and you don't throw away first round picks all the time, you can fill in. I mean, look at what the Chiefs do. I think the problem with the Niners, they keep telling themselves that they're like the Super Bowl team and they got the window. I feel like Kyle Shanahan's roster construction is flawed. You're trying to pour all your money and resources into everything except quarterback and offensive line. Really? I mean, I know you have the best left tackle, but other than that, you don't. Like you don't spend on anything on your offense. Everyone's a bargain, and your quarterbacks too. I think that's a flaw. I think you need to be spending on your offensive line. I think they're not invested enough, and if they were more invested in their offensive line, they might have won a Super Bowl with Jimmy freaking Garoppolo, or they might win one with Sam Darnold or Brock Purdy. So that's why I don't necessarily take the Niners seriously. I just look at them thinking like, man, Brock's not going to make it through this year. And if he doesn't, you got no chance.
You don't know what's going on in 24. And when Grant talks about, investing in the offensive line, that doesn't mean pouring $20 million per position or anything like that, but draft capital, right?
Yeah.
Apart from Trent Williams, you don't have a first round pick on the offensive line. Hell,
dude, you didn't even draft an offensive lineman this year at all. At all.
And that was an issue. When you
drafted a tight end.
When you draft a tight
kicker
end who isn't going to make the roster, I mean, he's on IR. And these were moves that the issue is these are moves that we're not talking about now. We were talking about back in March and April, when the 49ers selected these players, that this was going to be an issue. You had tackles available in that third round. I know, we can name names like Wanya Morris went at 94. You could have traded up for an offensive tackle with an extra fifth round pick instead of selecting 9-10 guys. There were different options that were there at tackle. And instead, what does this mean? The 49ers now have to go ahead and draft a tackle in 24 regardless. They've got to draft one likely with their first round pick, but that might be for Trent Williams. That might not be on the right side. The option instead, if you had a tackle on the right side, you could have had him develop and then be the guy in 2024, but now you don't have that option. You might have to wait another year for that.
Yep. I think it's a big year for Kyle Shanahan. I think the narrative about him has finally shifted. Like coming into this last year is always looked at as the number one offensive coach, number one or two, him and Andy Reid, and the next guy who's going to be a Super Bowl champion. Now people are looking at it like, this quarterback thing might be his Achilles heel, and he needs to prove that it's not. He needs to change the narrative. That's why he got so upset with Matt Maiocco. When Maiocco, who's like the most reasonable person and kind of represents how most Niner fans feel, was just sitting there real calmly saying, I kind of agree with I do agree with Jimmy. This is weird, and it's fair to call it what it is. And Kyle's like, no, it's not. No, it's not. No, it's like, yeah, man, you need to change that narrative, right? Everyone agrees with Jimmy. It can't be weird anymore. And I think the Yorks probably agree. And you got to unweirdify this, unmessify this, make it clear, you stake your reputation on Purdy and Darnold. Be right. Be right. Don't pivot next year. You can't pivot anymore. That's a double dribble. You already left. You created a clear, I don't know what I'm talking about. But that's a double dribble.
You do understand what Grant means.
It's a travel. It's a travel. Sorry.
Oh, man.
Sorry. But yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I mean, you do understand what you mean. Like, in terms of the quarterback situation, right? It's not only Jimmy Garoppolo. It's not only Trey Lance. It's all the moves you wanted to make in between those. And that's where last week, when we talk about the issue with Trey Lance, to be honest, I don't have an issue with the way they executed their plan. I don't even have an issue with this year because it seemed like, they were out on him early. But overall, the issue overall was the main plan. The plan itself was the issue. You can't go ahead and, first of all, when you're actively looking for a starting quarterback, Matthew Stafford, Deshaun Watson, or even a backup quarterback, Andy Dalton, Teddy Bridgewater, so many different options out there, and then go ahead with the option that you were publicly out on after trading 3 first-round picks up for a spot. I think the overall plan was screwed up. And really, when you understand it, given how head coaches are tied to quarterbacks, that's 3 years of a window that's now gone. And the 49ers, could have had a perfect opportunity to win a Super Bowl because a lot of their young talent that was really at the top of the league were on rookie contracts. That's not the case now. You have 7, 8 big deals. And while you have a quarterback on a rookie contract, your window is starting to disappear, whereas you kind of need a win in the next 2 years. Otherwise, the 49ers might be in a precarious position.
And I think it's interesting. It's just like Kyle's attitude is like, okay, yeah, like we threw away the 3 first-round picks. We thought we needed someone like Trey Lance, but then we realized we didn't need someone like Trey Lance, and we just didn't really give him. He just didn't fit our timeline, so we got rid of him. But we got Brock Purdy, so LOL, who cares? And I think a lot like Jimmy Garoppolo saying like, nah, that's messy, and I think a lot of people felt for Trey, like, man, you got caught up in something. You got drafted to a team that didn't have a plan for you. Everyone kind of felt for Trey, including Jimmy Garoppolo, who Trey was brought in to replace. And I think, that's pretty powerful stuff. So the fact that like Kyle just threw him away, he needs to be proven right on this. He needs to prove that he's not a careless, incompetent person when it comes to quarterbacks, because that's sort of the narrative that's getting painted right now.
Right,
Careless, incompetent.
You can argue whether or not the narrative around Kyle Shanahan's fair. I think obviously with the way the Trey Lance situation transpired, there's a lot of negativity going around the 49ers right now. Just it's piling on negativity. But the only way to really erase the negativity is to win that Super Bowl. And that's what Kyle Shanahan's next task is, because that ultimately wipes away the quarterback concerns for him.
Keep Brock Purdy healthy.